Good evening and welcome to the District of Seashell regular meeting of council on Wednesday, April 20th. It is 7:01 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that we're coming to you from the territory of the Seashell Nation. We have an agenda in front of us. Any additions or deletions? None? I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Number 2 on our agenda, adoption of or receipt of the staff reports. Motion to receive. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, appointments and delegations. We have Warren Hansen and I also saw Kathleen Sudis here from the Community Forest. Do you want to unmute yourself?
There we go. Hello.
Yeah. All this is new, you know.
Yeah, that's right. It's like it's so quiet. Thank you very much for having us.
Do you want us to start?
Begin?
Please go right ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. So I prepared a little bit of a little statement here, but I really like to thank Mayor and Council for inviting us to speak on this important topic. My name's Warren Hansen. For people who don't know me, I'm the operations manager of your community forest, and I'm the new director of the BC Community Forest Association. Kathleen Sudis is here, our board chair, and she'll be here to give me moral support and answer any questions from council about our organization's strategic management. In your agenda package today is a resolution that we're hoping the District of Seashell can support and submit to the UBCM convention. The resolution and backgrounder is a provincial initiative brought forward by the BC Community Forest Association. And we're presenting this resolution to you today and what it means to our local community forests. So back in June 2001, BC government released an intention paper called Modernizing Forest Policy in British Columbia. It's setting the intentions and leading the forest sector transition. And that's a bit of a mouthful. And of course, it's BC government. However, in the new policy direction captured in the intentions paper has brought concern to operating community forests around the province, namely the intention to revise stumpage rate structures of community forest agreements. The community forest pays a stumpage on tabular rate system and is paramount to the continued success of community forest programs all around BC because it recognizes the unique responsibilities and mandates given by government and to our community and to the specific policies needed to support them. To meet our government charge of social objectives, our community forest pays a discounted rate that has ranged from $2 to $15 per cubic meter. And that number varies for every different community forest, either be on the coast or in the interior. But having this tabular rate structure, our community forests on the Sunshine Coast has allowed us local control of important community benefits being generated and given back to our community, such as wood for our local mills, employment for our forestry workers and contractors, and profits dispensed into the District of Seashell held legacy fund. The community forest has provided over $3 million to the legacy fund for local community projects since 2014. And as a local community forest, with those unique mandates and responsibilities, we can make commitments not to log old growth and stay out of the Chapman Creek Community Watershed, which are 2 examples. Tabular rates have also allowed us to be flexible in the markets, fund projects such as trail strategies on the Sunshine Coast, provide forest education outreach programs like our Far Smart program and Wood Expo, provide new recreation trails and upgrades, improved road access for our community to get to our forest in order to recreate. And finally, to operate a much needed and highly valued community firewood program, which we started last year. If the new system is implemented under the intention paper, we expect to pay stumpage up to 10 times more than we pay today. And it's obvious that we need to cut expenses in order to be viable. And unfortunately, this may mean no funding for current and future initiatives such as our ecosystem-based management, wetland restoration, carbon projects, and possibly wildlife inventories. Most importantly, and it would significantly lower the expectations of generating funds for community projects. The challenge now that the district council faces, and being our sole shareholder of our community forest, is that are we operating to create a remarkable example of community forestry in generating benefits back to our community, or are we being sacrificed for big box industry and losing our community benefits in order to provide for provincial general revenues? All community forests are founded in small communities. Small communities are challenged with inadequate funding, and larger cities have louder voices at the table. But with your endorsement and maintaining tabular rates, this resolution will send a message to this government to keeping our community forest benefits here on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you for everyone's time. And if you have any questions, Kathleen and I are here to answer them.
Thank you, Warren.
Kathleen, did you have anything further to say, or are you just
I really just sort of want to reiterate to everyone here the impact that this could have on the community forest. I think Warren's done a really great job of sort of summing that up, and I think the impact, if they go ahead with this increase, is going to be profound on us. We're just beginning to embark on our ecosystems-based management. As Warren pointed out, the firewood program we just got started last year, and it's hugely successful, and it really does provide benefit on more than just providing firewood. It's a community asset that I think we should be really proud of. And the fact that, we wanted to sort of, reinvest in our communities, reinvest in our forest. We've got a lot of, new vision moving forward. We have so much potential that we can be providing not only to community, but also to creating sort of something that really could be special for here on the coast. And this could just take us out at the knees. And it's almost like, the community forest around BC, and then us in particular, because that's who we're really concerned about, is us, are going to be severely impacted by this. And we're really hoping and sincerely that at the UBCM that you can be our voice in this matter going forward. And I'm sure that other community forests around the property are making a similar plea to their shareholders and their local governments for the same messaging. We definitely need your support in this manner. Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, Council, any questions? Councillor Lamb, sorry.
I just, years ago, there used to be quite a few timber licenses or timber harvesting licenses here on the coast. And they were a lot of smaller operators. And I'm just kind of wondering if this is, the government in their wisdom, clawed all those licenses back, or made it so that it made it not economical for the different companies to harvest. So I'm just kind of wondering if they're sort of doing the same thing where, they've got a bunch of different licenses out there, and they're saying, District of Seashell only has 20,000 meters. We could give that to Interfor to support their cut, or is this something that they're just trying to, just need more money because they've overspent what they're allowed?
I agree with you, Tom. You hit it on the head of your last sentence there. I think there's a real misunderstanding. There should be a better understanding about what community forests really do for our communities all around the province, not only here, working with First Nations and kind of really being that segue for that sort of community interfaces, and the first thing we see is people coming into the community forest and using our community forest in a way that's never been really done before. I used to work for Canfor, as you know, and Canfor operated in an entirely different environment, and it was about providing on shareholder capital employed in various sort of metrics. There wasn't this real sort of deep understanding of working with the community on trying to meet their expectations on how they want to see forest being managed around here on the Sunshine Coast, especially. We think that, we're trying to send a message, as part of all the sort of consolidated, all the community forests, as Kathleen was saying, that, listen to us. You've charged us with dealing with the communities. You've basically given the rest of it all to BC Timber Sales or sort of major licensees out here, and really we only represent, community forest only represents 5% of the AAC, but 80% of all the social aspirations for the people of BC. So it's really sort of this real disconnection, and it really dismays me that there's the real sort of lack of understanding from government and lack of kind of that support to be able to do so, and to be able to make this community a better place.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question about the timing of this. So typically when we put resolutions forward, we take them to our area organization first. So AVICC, right, which was a couple of weekends ago.
That's right.
When did this information become available? Because when we go to UBCM, typically they'll only entertain items that have arisen since the area meetings.
So I was told that there was a second way of submitting, and I believe it was you have till June 30th to submit, and I'm not sure what that process looks like. I was assured by our executive director that avenue for a community forest was still relevant. Yes, we did. It sounded like we did miss that first sort of avenue, but there was a second thing that we were trying to capture. So you will know more. We're just
not necessarily. I just know that they can be very sticky about their rules, right? And
yeah.
we could look at submitting it. And I mean, there are emergency items that can come forward. Typically, if it's something that's arisen since the meeting or since, so we didn't have time to get it in there, then it is accepted at UBCM. So we'll probably come back to you for timing around that.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Darnell, will you need anything further from us? Like, do you need any kind of projections of what the financial impact could or might be, and how that would impact us as a community moving forward, and yourself as a shareholder? Like, would that kind of math make any difference or no?
Yes, that will when we do our present. Because if this gets accepted, then when it gets introduced, we actually get to speak to it on the floor. So there'll be background information, but whatever else we can provide is beneficial because we can actually speak that when the resolution is being considered.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Good.
All right. Council, any other questions or comments? Councillor Scott.
It states right in the paper here that this was released June 2021, so it might...
right, the paper was, but I don't know if the implications, you know what I mean? Like what they did with it, that may be very recent. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they may look at it that way, and we'll see.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So typically we would refer this to staff, but this is just a recommendation. Mr. Yates?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, you can submit resolutions directly to UBCM by June 30th. You just need to put you need a resolution of council endorsing the resolution, and then you need as much background information as you can muster to send along with it.
Okay, so we could, as a council now at this point, endorse this. What would council like to do? Councillor Scott?
Yeah, I would endorse this going forward to UBCM as a resolution.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you.
Can you mark me down as an abstain since I missed half the conversation?
Okay. Sounds
Great.
good. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
so
much.
much. Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.
Night. All right, our next delegation is, now I don't know how to say your name,
Miyuki Shinkai.
Miyuki Shinkai?
That's right. You got it.
All right, with the Sunshine Coast Labor Council with regards to the day of mourning. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Zegers and member of councils. My name is Miyuki Shinkai. I'm a Sunshine Coast Labor Council's president and the QP 801 school district workers. I'm coming to you from unceded land of the Squamish Nation. I'm one of Warren's neighbor, land dealers. Thanks very much for accepting our request from Sunshine Coast Labor Councils that we were advocating for the April 28th as an official day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job. So we would be appreciating if you are able to issue a proclamation. We'd appreciate a copy tonight. I'd like to introduce my member here. His name is Peter McConnell, a resident of District Seashell. He is going to present district a day of mourning presentation, as well as information about the services at Seaside Center, just outside the Seaside Center. And just a little bit of information about the Sunshine Coast Labor Council. We represent hundreds of affiliated union members on the Sunshine Coast. So we are just two of us, but mighty power of the people for working people on the Sunshine Coast. So Peter, please take it away.
Thanks, Miyuki. Good evening. My name is Peter McConnell. I am a delegate of the Sunshine Coast Labor Council and a member of the Sunshine Coast Teachers Association, as you can probably see behind me. Each year, the Sunshine Coast Labor Council presents to the local government within our region to seek their support and recognition of April 28th as being the day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job. Our purpose in recognizing the day of mourning has always been twofold. One, to remember workers killed and injured on the job, and two, to rededicate ourselves to preventing future injuries through education. This year, we are adding a third priority that speaks to this new widespread understanding of health and safety, and which echoes the campaign of the Canadian Labor Congress, Work Shouldn't Hurt. This campaign, Work Shouldn't Hurt, calls on the Canadian federal government to take a leadership role internationally to get the International Labor Organization Convention on Workplace Safety as a fundamental right passed this year. It is leadership that is key when it comes to health and safety in the workplace. Strong leadership can show the way, set the example, ensure that we are all working together. This is especially important for younger workers who are at a higher risk of injury in the workplace, as they often are unaware of their rights, like the right to refuse unsafe work, and may not feel able to speak up when they have concerns or questions. Leadership, awareness, and education are the keys to ensure safer, healthier workplaces. I would like to conclude by inviting you to join our Labor Council on this day of mourning for workers killed and injured on the job for an in-person service observance on Thursday, April 28th, so not tomorrow, but the week afterwards, at 11 a.m. at the Workers' Memorial Plaque in Spirit Square at the Seaside Center in Seashell. Workplace BC's officer will be there with us to deliver the day of mourning presentation. Thank you. Respectfully presented by the Sunshine Coast Labor Council.
Thank you very much. And I'll read the proclamation while you're with us. So, Day of Mourning for Workers Killed and Injured on the Job, April 28th, 2022. Whereas the most recent available statistics show that nearly 1,000 workers are killed on the job each year, a number that does not include claims rejected by compensation boards, and whereas thousands more are permanently disabled and hundreds of thousands are injured at the workplace, and whereas April 28th of each year has been chosen by the Canadian Labor Congress as a day of mourning for these victims of workplace accidents and disease, a day to remember the supreme sacrifice they have been forced to make in order to earn a living, a day to renew approaches to governments for tougher occupational health and safety standards and more effective compensation, a day to rededicate ourselves to the goal of making Canada's workplaces safe. Whereas Sunshine Coast Labour Council will be hosting a day of mourning ceremony on Thursday, April 28th at 10:55 a.m. at Seaside Centre, 5790 Torito Street, Seashell. And whereas the District of Seashell Council and staff will observe a minute of silence upon the reading of this proclamation. Now, therefore, I, Darnell Seegers, on behalf of the District of Seashell Council, do hereby proclaim that April 28th, 2022 shall be known as Day of Mourning for Workers Killed and Injured on the Job in the District of Seashell. And we will now observe a minute of silence. Thank you. And we will ensure that you get a signed copy of the proclamation.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caesars and councillors, for your dedication and commitment to serve better for the community. Thank you very much. See you next Thursday.
Thank you. We have another proclamation. This is item 4.2. Childcare Month, May 2022, and Childcare Provider Appreciation Day, May 20th, 2022. Whereas childcare is a vital community service that supports healthy families and a strong economy, and childcare providers and early childhood educators are essential to providing quality and safe childcare, and whereas quality early care and learning programs honor and celebrate children's cultural identity and language, and contribute to children's healthy development and learning, and whereas childcare providers, parents, all levels of government, businesses, community associations, Indigenous communities, and all people in British Columbia share a commitment to ensure that quality childcare is affordable and inclusive for families. And whereas the Government of British Columbia supports and promotes the delivery of high-quality, culturally relevant early childcare and learning options to ensure programs and services are available to support and protect the province's most vulnerable children and families. And whereas many individuals, organizations, and municipalities throughout British Columbia have since 1982 organized events in celebration of Childcare Month and Childcare Provider Appreciation Day. Now, therefore, I, Darnell Seegers, on behalf of the District of Seashell Council, do hereby proclaim that the month of May 2022 shall be known as Childcare Month, and May 20, 2022 shall be known as Childcare Provider Appreciation Day in the District of Seashell. And we have a couple of people here with us this evening. Julie Black from Capilano University, and you have a couple of other people with you as well, Violet Jensen and Sylvia Kind. Are they with you as well? All right, and did you want to speak to this, Julia?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Seegers and Council, for your proclamation and for the invitation to come and join you this evening while you read that out. Certainly, we are, as we come out of this pandemic, Capilano University, our early childhood care and education program, is looking forward to having a more visible presence on the coast. And we've got a rich program of early childhood courses within our diploma program currently ongoing, as well as quite a lot of new programming that's new courses that are coming in for the fall. So really looking forward to working more closely with the community and addressing what we all know are ongoing and immediate childcare needs. So thank you again. And we look forward to actually being present in the month of May on the coast and working with local childcare providers to help celebrate childcare and the important work that early child educators are doing. Thanks, Mayor Seegers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. All right, we're going to move on to item 5.1. This is the adoption of minutes of previous council meetings. So this is the minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of April 6th. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? Seeing none, I'd look for someone to move adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Then item 5.2. These are the minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, April 13th. Any errors or omissions in these? Seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we have no committee or commission minutes or reports. We're moving on to bylaws. So item 8.1, this is the adoption of fees and charges bylaw amendment, bylaw number 575-6, 2022, and we'll turn over to our chief building official, Mr. Nihis.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything more to add to the report submitted, but I'm here to answer any questions should council have any.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Toth?
Didn't see anybody putting their hands up, so I will move recommendation 2 that council adopt fees and charges amendment bylaw 575-6, 2022.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to the actual bylaw. This is 8.1B, pages 27 through 33. District of Seashell bylaw number 575-6, 2022, a bylaw to establish building permit fees and charges for the District of Seashell. And I'd look for someone to move adoption. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.1. This is with regards to the 2022 Community Investment Program grants. And we have Ms. Smith with us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you tonight is a report presenting the recommendations of the Community Investment Program Grant Review Committee. Our Grant Review Committee members spent a considerable amount of time reviewing each of these applications and made carefully considered recommendations for the awarding of grants. Approximately 3/4 of the recommended awards in terms of dollar value are for social service and environmental programs and services, and the remaining quarter are for culture, recreation, and sport initiatives. As you know, it's vital for these local organizations to receive municipal support because it's the municipal support that can help them to leverage provincial and federal support and grants from community foundations. For example, in 2021, the District of Seashell awarded $113,000 in annual and multi-year community investment program grants. And in turn, those grantees were able to secure over $900,000 in grants from other local, provincial, and federal government grants. So for every dollar that we were giving out, they were able to obtain another $8 from other grant programs from other levels of government. The budget for annual grants this year was $43,000, and this is in addition to the $77,000 that was already committed in multi-year community investment program grants. The Grant Review Committee have recommended awarding $43,508. Staff were able to find this extra $508 in operational savings from the grant program budget. So should council choose to award the full amount that is available to us. There are 22 grant recommendations before you tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the report.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. Just quickly, I want to thank Councillor Rowe and the committee for going through these. It's always a challenging job, and I appreciate the diversity of applications that we saw. One that I am concerned with is the recommendation for $1,000 to the Sunshine Coast Minor Hockey Association. One of the criteria in our policy is that the funding is not for items that are the responsibility of other local governments. So I'm just wondering if I could hear more about how this item is not the responsibility of the SCRD.
Do you want me to take that, Siobhan? Or Ms. Smith?
Sure, please do.
Okay. Councillor McLean, that was my first reaction as well. The actual ask, and the actual ask was for hockey nets that are for 6, 7-year-olds, so they're not the standard hockey nets. So Hockey Canada now says best practice is cross ice until you're about 8 or 9 years old. And so they don't play end to end, they play across the ice. And one of the major problems with hockey is identifying and maintaining kids that are interested in being a goalie before they burn out from losing 30-1 because they're trying to defend a hockey net that is massive. So the ask was actually for small hockey nets. And that was the discussion. I actually had quite a low amount towards this. The rest of the committee saw it differently. We had a pretty fulsome discussion around it. It was also an excellent application, probably one of the best that we had insofar as how they demonstrated the future goals for how this would benefit the organization. So that's how it came to be. And I would, I would agree that the SCRD should be providing, what you need to rent the ice time to play the hockey game. But this is also a bit of a different thing than just regular hockey nets. They also are seeking funding from multiple other sources. And I don't know, it's like medical equipment. If you put the word hockey on it, it seems to cost 4 times what you think it would. So that's how we came to that decision.
Thank you. That's
I could add to that as well. The Minor Hockey Association will be requesting funding from the SCRD as well. And as Councillor Rowe stated, it's a little bit more specialized than what the SCRD would typically provide. They tend to provide more basic equipment for programs and services.
perfect. That's satisfactory in my mind. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just make a couple comments if nobody has any other questions. First off, thank you to Ms. Smith and staff for their support with this. It's always, it's a challenge, boy, to turn $100,000 worth of requests into 43,000. Most of the applications were well put together. There were a few that were pretty thin, and their awards reflected that. I was really, really happy to see an application from a community association. I thought that was great. Generally speaking, it would be great to have more money to hand out, but that's where we settled on. We decided as a group going in that we would specifically try and stay on budget, and we managed that pretty much. The one that I do want to speak to council with regards to their application, and that's community services for the Safe Neighborhoods application. And if you reviewed that, you'll know that community services has contracted with a security firm to provide daily monitoring of their property. They have had quite a few issues with almost daily calls to the RCMP over various issues, and as well as not daily to the fire department. They've had a few fires that were started out back of community services. So they needed to do something, and they contracted with a security firm that is doing daily checks, depending if it's a weekday or a weekend, 3 to 4 times a day. It has essentially really brought down the incidents of, or the number of incidents that they've had to deal with. And so that was a really tough one, because it didn't feel like they were asking for $10,000, I believe. It didn't really feel like it was a community investment fit. The committee did want to recognize the work that they did to put that together, and that the need is there. But I'm bringing it up with council to test your appetite for looking at helping to fund this through a different means, perhaps the public safety reserve or such. Would council be interested in seeing a delegation from them on this topic, or what is, I'm curious what the appetite is for that.
Council, any input, questions, comments? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, thank you. Not having a large amount of detail, I see where you're coming from. And my preferred path forward would be to refer the grant application to staff to prepare a report back to council. I don't think we need a delegation.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
$1,000 isn't a lot of money. I think our staff time is better well spent on other projects. I'm fine to move it forward as it is, and let our staff work on projects that also need work. This can be our decision.
All right, anybody else? Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Councillor Rowe, you said that their original ask was $10,000?
That's correct, yeah.
And the committee came up with 2 within budget. I would be fine to fund an additional amount from the public safety reserve. I didn't get any opportunity to review the submission or anything like that in any detail, so I don't know if 10,000 was an appropriate amount or based on what they've already been spending, or if it's a multi-year amount. I'd be interested in hearing more. I don't know that it's something that we need to refer to staff for a report or anything like that. I think it's something we should sit down with community services directly or invite them here.
I believe in the report it indicated $10,000 would cover the cost for a year. Is that correct?
That's correct, as I recall.
And the committee was looking to award them $2,000?
The committee wanted to recognize that it's an issue. That's a very vulnerable population. It's a very vulnerable area. You've got home care services there. You've got the food bank there. All the other services that community, services have people coming and going. And, the shelter is there, and of course, High Tide. So they wanted to recognize that the application was a substantial subject, but had trouble fitting it really into something the community investment program should be funding. Because when you look, we also sort of looked at the package around community services. You have Arrowhead, you had this ask, and a volunteer program. So things out as well, and as it was, we were only able to award Arrowhead half of what it asked. So it was a conversation about where we landed, and this seemed to have the least fit within the investment program, but yet it's a really valid concern, and something I would like to see us be able to support.
All right, would someone like to make a recommendation? Is there a recommendation to move forward? Councillor Scott?
Are you talking just on this subject here or all of it?
Probably the one that Councillor Rowe brought up, and then we can go back to the other.
I would say that I'm happy to move forward with the 2,000 through the CIP grant, and then ask the community services to come forward to just have a delegation and talk about what their needs are. Maybe we can grab the other amount out of the public safety reserve.
All right, is that a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconder for the recommendation. Any other comments on this? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, so now we have some recommendations on pages 34 and 35. What would you like to do with those?
Can I jump in before we do that?
Sorry, Councillor McLean, yep.
Yeah, I'd just one more concern, and I'm just going to go off script here and tag Councillor or Director Dillon. So I'll just give him a second to hopefully jump on. There's a request here from the Davis Bay Community Association regarding materials to build an outdoor seating area and a pathway at Whitaker Park. So in this last budget, we created, I believe, I can't remember the exact name, but it's a community safety fund to address ongoing issues. What is the process for referring things to that program, and might we be able to refer this to that program and delegate that decision to staff?
Yes, through your worship, there's no formal process. It's just a first come, first serve basis based on some community identified concerns. I mean, we have multiple ones throughout the district. So, and $50,000, it's not a lot. So we've, there are some speed concerns and concerns around parked vehicles by Chat Leach. So we're going to spend a portion there putting up some speed signs and raised pedestrian crosswalks. We haven't priced that out. There might be anywhere from 10 to 20K left after that. So we can apply that to other community-based needs.
Okay, so would you like direction to take a look at this? I don't want this to come back to council. I think maybe just a comment that take a look at the grant proposal.
Yeah, we can, you can refer it back to us and we can take a look to see if there's money left over to apply to this.
Okay.
Councillor McLean, how would you like to proceed then?
So I'll move that we refer additional funding for the Davis Bay Wilson Creek Summer Park Community Association to the Director of Engineering.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Question? Okay.
So Councillor McLean, are you recommending that the $1,000 grant goes through as recommended and then referring for additional funding?
Yeah, that was my intent.
Okay.
Okay, that wasn't clear on this end, sorry, okay. Okay, then that's been seconded. All right, so the recommendation is that additional funding requested through their CIP application by the Davis Bay Wilson Creek Summer Park Community Association referred to staff to consider funding. Yeah. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Just looking on page 36 here, the description, yeah, materials to build an outdoor seating area and pathway at Whitaker Park. The funds that were set aside for engineering there were specifically around safety improvements. I don't see the fit with this. I'm just wondering if Councillor McLean had thoughts on how this fits.
I'll refer to Ms. Smith or Councillor Rowe. I don't have the project details. I just see pathway and I think safety.
Okay, so if this goes to staff, then staff will look to see whether or not this actually fits the criteria. If it does, they can consider whether or not they want to fund it. If not, then it will not be funded. Director Dillon?
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Todd's point that the intent of that was to deal with issues like speeding or intersection concerns, pedestrian crossings, obscuring sight lines, things that have to do with safety. So aesthetic or pathways for parks purposes or recreational purposes would not fall within this funding envelope.
Councillor Rowe?
I don't recall there being, and Ms. Smith can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall there being a safety concern with this. Yep, go ahead.
That's correct. It wasn't so much safety at the pathway. The intention with the pathway was to make it more accessible. I mean, I suppose you could consider that safety somewhat. They didn't use that word itself, but accessibility was the concern.
Yeah, I would agree that I don't think that meets what we had intended with that engineering safety fund.
Councillor McLean, then Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'm happy to withdraw or vote against this or whatever is needed at this point.
Councillor Scott.
Maybe it's still a discussion with Director Dillon's team there. The Davis Bay Community Association has a lot of really good volunteers. And maybe if it's just material that they need and they supply the volunteer labor to create what they're looking for, maybe there's a workaround that we can help them out in a direction that they're looking for. They would just have to supply some of the labor.
Okay, well, there's a recommendation on the floor that this application, other than the amount that's been awarded or would be awarded by CIP, be referred to staff. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to staff. All right, back to pages 34 and 35. Now that we've taken some detours around the, what would you like to do with these? Councillor Toth?
I think the only recommendation we actually passed was the one for community services. So that was 2.11. 2.12. So I'm happy to move all the other recommendations that are there as presented, and no, I'm not going to read them all.
Okay, I'm just going to check with staff. Did we actually pass the 2,000 or did we refer the rest of it to staff? Or, sorry, for delegation? Okay. All right, and that a delegation from community services come, yes, all right. All right, so all of the recommendations except for 2.12, you're moving those? All right, is there a seconder for that? Seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. And then I just wanted to make a note that the minutes, I talked to Jennifer earlier today, and the minutes, I pointed out some minor edits in the minutes, and we're looking to have those corrected for the final version. Thank you. Director Toth, or Councillor Toth,
Tomorrow's director. Just looking on page 38, the table at the bottom of the multi-year grants, I see a couple of them are different from the award amounts of 2021. Were they reviewed again this year, or were the amounts that, like the multi-year grant, stipulated the 2022 amounts as presented?
I believe when we passed them, they were different amounts. Increase, if you will. Don't use that term. I shouldn't have said that. But when we awarded them some of the grants. Oh, okay. Am I? You can't understand me?
You break up every once in a while a bit, yes.
Okay. Then maybe I should let Ms. Smith answer the question.
Sure. So Some of the grant applicants requested a slightly increased amount over the 3-year period of their grant term. So that's why the amount that they were awarded in 2021 might, in some cases, be a little bit less than the 2022 amount. The one anomaly there is the Resource Center. They had anticipated being able to find additional sources of funding by this year. And so they had initially requested for the grant to go in the other direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 10.2, license to occupy for Seashell Downtown Business Association Street Patio. And who is speaking to this?
Your Worship, I will be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is requesting that Council consider approving a license to occupy agreement with the Seashell Downtown Business Association for placement of 2 street patios on Cowrie Street. I do note, and as Council will recall, District of Seashell held the street patio pilot program last year, and it ended in October 2021. Staff are in the process of preparing a report on the results of that pilot program and any recommendations for where you might want to consider going this year. But in the meantime, this report is presented just to deal with the SDBA's request for this year, just in terms of timelines to allow enough of an opportunity for the SDBA to do what they need to do to get organized to have the patios be installed. So this item is just to deal with that, and you will see another report down the line on the full patio program. So Council's used to seeing these over the last 2 years. It's been pretty well exactly the same. The patios will be placed in the exact same areas. The only, and so the appropriate license to occupy, et cetera, has been attached for your consideration. The only change from last year is last year, if you recall, the second patio that was sort of closer to Pickles was actually insured and managed and everything by them. This year, this request has come completely by SDBA, so they will be responsible for both patios and insure both patios, et cetera. So the items before you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Council? Councillor Kuster?
I'll move recommendation 2 that a license to occupy agreement be entered into the Seashell Downtown Business Association to authorize the placement of 2 street patios on district right-of-way on Cowrie Street as delineated in the license to occupy agreement as presented. Further, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the license.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.3, liquor license amendment to expand service hours, 22 Tap House. And Mr. Kobowitz, over to you.
Thank you. I don't have a presentation on these applications tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions. The first application is for the 22 Tap House establishment to expand their liquor service hours. The requested hours were outside of the allowable hours in our business license bylaw. However, we're recommending that Council endorse the maximum permissible hours under the business license bylaw. So currently, I believe the establishment opens at 11:30, and this would allow them to open at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Scott?
So just to clarify this, they were always good to stay open till 1. Now they just want to open an hour and a half earlier. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it was mostly to open earlier in the day. I'm not exactly sure what the hours were for their existing liquor license as far as what the closing hours were, but the intent of the application was to open earlier in the day.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so just for clarity, the applicant has requested 9 a.m., but we are recommending 10 a.m. Is that correct?
That's right. That's without amendments to our business license bylaw. That's all we can allow because the bylaw itself restricts liquor service hours to between 10 a.m. and 1 a.m. outside of the New Year's Eve. But so that's the maximum we can offer at this point without council directing us to amend the business license bylaw.
So
Go ahead.
that would be something I'm in favor of. I think brunch is a big thing, getting a mimosa with your breakfast. That's something that people are looking to do. And I think our community would be supportive of that kind of thing in Seashell. So I would like to see that business bylaw amended to change that to 9 a.m. I think it's much more modern.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, there are some recommendations on page 73. What would you like to do? And you don't have to read them.
Yeah, just
Councilor McLean.
looking for a little direction from staff about what they'd like to see, but I'll try and craft something and feel free to correct me. But I'd move that council direct staff to amend the business license bylaw to permit 9 a.m. liquor sales.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded, Councillor Scott? That was kind of I didn't know if that was.
Well, I don't think we're actually needing to amend the bylaw. I think we're just allowing this operator to open in accordance with the bylaw.
Right now our bylaw will only allow 10 a.m.
Yeah. Okay, so this is outside with the recommendations here then.
Yes, and so, okay, so that's the recommendation that's put forward. Is there someone who'd like to second that recommendation? Nobody's, you'll second it? Okay. All right, so I have a question around that. So I see these as two separate issues at this point. One is the request by the operator, and one is with regards to our bylaw. So is there a time limit by when this would need to go in? And, you know, if we're looking at our bylaw process, to amend a bylaw takes some time. Would we be able to amend that before this recommendation would have to go forward in the timeline given to us by whatever, LRCB or whoever they are?
I would suggest that the recommendations in the report go forward as is, and staff can follow up with recommendations once we get clarity from the LCRB on just so we don't impact the timing for the applicant for the summer season coming up.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Totally supportive of the amendments that are being requested here this evening. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to send away, you know, recommendations to change bylaws. It wasn't something we'd talked about or considered before right now. I don't know that I have a problem with 9 a.m., but I don't know if the community has a problem with 9 a.m. So I don't know if it's something that we should just be throwing out there right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about the recommendation on the floor? Seeing none, this is recommending that staff revise the bylaw. Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, that's defeated. We have a recommendation on page 73. What would you like to do that? Councillor Toth.
I will move well, I have a question first and then I will move the recommendations. Recommendation 2, that council provide an opportunity for any residents to speak to the application. From a process perspective, what is the intention of that recommendation? Would that be if somebody wanted to speak here tonight? Is that some other referral process? Thanks.
Yeah, and apologies, I neglected to mention there was one comment that was sent into council opposing this application and one other regarding later hours, not this particular application, but the two coming up. Beyond that, we didn't receive any other comments, but the intent of that recommendation is to provide anybody who might be either in attendance virtually or in person an opportunity to speak if they wish.
And these were advertised as well in the paper.
I guess I should move recommendation 2, and we'll see if anybody wants to speak that's in our gallery or in attendance virtually.
Well, we should probably ask them in the gallery or virtual or in attendance if they want to speak to this. And then you could.
You've got to provide the opportunity first.
Yes. Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak to this? You have to come to the mic.
Thank you. Only I just don't understand why we have to keep going through things like, how early do you need to drink? I mean, really, that's the whole point of my objection is, why don't you just make it from 12 midnight to 12 midnight, and then you won't have to do this anymore. Drink at all times, anytime. I don't have anything against booze. I just, how early does it have? I mean, it's not going to impact anything in the summer if you aren't allowed to drink before 10. That's all. I just think that maybe sometimes you just say no because it's the proper thing to say. It's like a child. Sometimes you got to say no. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Seeing none, Councillor Toth.
I'll move the recommendations as presented.
Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.4. This is food primary license amendment for patron participation, El Segundo. Mr. Kovitz.
Thank you. This application is of a similar nature. However, it involves an endorsement for an existing food primary license. And these types of endorsements that might have an impact to the general public through noise or disturbance are required to go to the local government for approval. Although the food primary license or the liquor license associated with a food establishment generally doesn't come to council for approval. In this case, El Segundo is looking for a patron participation endorsement. This would allow for karaoke or live music, trivia nights, this sort of thing. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Toth?
I guess I saw the comment within the staff report here that they would still be required to follow the noise bylaw. So it wouldn't be outdoor on the patio music karaoke or something crazy at 12:30 at night.
That's right. Our noise bylaw is somewhat subjective in its intent, but it would certainly cover off scenarios where residents were disturbed by excess levels of noise that would disturb their sleep.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, since this one also says provide an opportunity for any residents to speak to the application, is there anybody in the gallery who'd like to speak to this? Seeing none here, anybody in the gallery? Okay, Councillor McLean, over to you.
Yeah, I'm not going to move another motion, but I'm going to make a similar comment. But with our business license bylaw limiting alcohol sales to 10 a.m., we've essentially removed another breakfast opportunity in Seashell because it'd be very strange for El Segundo to be open at 9 a.m. and not serve any kind of alcoholic drink. So I doubt they would make that effort. So that's one less option for breakfast.
Thank you. Sven, go ahead.
I'll just clarify that just because this is a food primary license, I believe that they would probably have the option of serving alcohol with their breakfast because it's primarily a restaurant and not a liquor primary license. It's a slight distinction in the licensing regime. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe that they likely could serve alcohol with a meal at their opening hours.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Scott.
Can you answer that question for us?
Yes, we are licensed to serve alcohol at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one of the owners in the gallery here, and she said they are allowed to serve alcohol at 9 a.m. in the morning. And that's because of the license you have, food primary, okay. So there are some recommendations on page 77. What would you like to do, Councillor Todd?
Sorry, Councillor Kuster, go ahead.
I'll move recommendation 3 that council has considered. I don't have to read them. I'll move recommendation 3 and 4.
And 2?
And, 2, I thought you already did, and 2.
All right. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.5. This is liquor primary license amendment for outdoor patio 2545 salon and spa. And again, Mr. Krowicz.
Thank you. Again, this is a license amendment application to allow a permanent outdoor patio, which would consist of 2 bistro tables outside the business where alcohol service would be permitted. This is for a maximum of occupancy of 4 patrons, or essentially 2 bistro tables with 2 chairs each, and they would be located entirely on the private property portion of the sidewalk in front of the Watermark development. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Scott?
Just curious if there's any requirement for the strata to comment on this, because they're all strata-owned units.
Mr. Krowicz, any idea?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that in regards to this type of application. It may fall onto the issuing body of the license, which will be the Liquor Control Licensing Board, to ensure that the permission is there through the application process that they have, since this is in fact a referral from the liquor branch rather than an application directly to the district.
So in other words, the liquor and whatever they're called now, LRCB, they used to be, they're the ones doing the referral. So if the strata would need to be contacted, or they would get a referral directly rather than from us.
Either a referral, or that would be a requirement in the application process through the LCRB, through the property owner giving permission. But I'm not aware of the details. We could certainly bring back more information if necessary.
Okay, I can recall when this liquor primary license came before us. So this is an amendment. At that time, I believe they had to have the strata approve that. So, but that didn't come to us. That went straight to the strata at that time. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Toth?
Thank you. I know that the business bylaw says 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. I recognize that. It's a little weird that we're authorizing the salon and spa to be able to serve liquor till 1 a.m. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have a craving to go get a haircut at 12:30 in the morning. So I'm just wondering, is there any ability or authority for us to restrict that timeline down a little bit, or is it sort of standard boilerplate stuff?
The intent was to bring attention to the LCRB that we do have this restriction in our business license bylaw, but it is certainly council's prerogative to further restrict that if they wish, and that recommendation would be brought forward to the LCRB.
Note it's and spa. Sorry. I know they do weddings and things, and right, it's that kind of thing, or bridal parties that come in.
Yep. In light of bridal parties and things like that, that does actually make a lot of sense. So I'm willing to move the recommendations as presented.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.5, Festival of the Written Arts, Lease.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is before council to consider approving renewal of the Sunshine Coast Festival of the Written Arts lease of Rockwood Lodge property and facilities that the district has with them. Just by way of background, the current lease expired at the end of last year, December 31st, 2021, and it continues to allow for a month-by-month operations until we enter into a new lease. Council may recall that this actually came forward to you back in February, and at that time there was some questions and discussion about the pavilion building on the property because the lease that was presented to you at that time didn't speak to it or mention it at all. And so council referred it back to staff to do some further research, which staff has now done. And in looking back at it, nothing has changed from the beginning in 1989 when it was first when the council of the day first approved the arrangement where the festival would pay for all construction costs to place the pavilion there and allow them to place it there. And so we can't see any reason other than just along the way, for whatever reason, that part of the lease was dropped off. We couldn't see any reason why. So the lease is now before you with a new Section 5 speaking to the box office that's on the property and the festival's use of that building, and a new Section 7 that adds some provisions around the pavilion and basically just reflects what is currently happening, what the current relationship is between the district and the festival when it comes to the pavilion. All those sections were actually in the previous version of the lease, so we didn't really make up anything new. And with that, and I should say also that we did refer those changes to festival representatives, and they were fine with our proposed additions to the lease. So it's in front of you now for consideration of approving for a further 5-year term. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, what would you like to do? First of all, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean?
Oh, I was going to move it, but just briefly, I wanted to thank staff for digging into this one. It's just dotting our I's, crossing our T's. So I appreciate the work put in. And Councillor Toth, do you have a question or should I move it?
Go ahead with your question, Councillor Todd.
On page 92, I think it's supposed to be subsection 5, but it's labeled as 1. But it mentions that the lodge is to be used only for catered events and additional office space during the festival. Does that preclude it from being booked or used by other organizations outside of festival time of year?
Basically not. I mean, there is a provision there that if something came up at other times of the year, there's an overall provision that says that the festival doesn't have exclusive right of any of the facilities, but up till now, it's never actually been an issue.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, back to you.
Oh, I got the honors. Okay, I'll move recommendation 2 that the lease with the Sunshine Coast Festival of the Written Arts for use of Rockwood Lodge property be renewed for a 5-year term from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2026 at a lease fee of $10 per year under the same terms and conditions as the current lease, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the lease as presented.
There's a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.7, Seashell Airport Lease Modification Agreement, Lots 3 and 10 for Spainy. And back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is before council for consideration of endorsing approval of a modification agreement over the lease of lots 3 and 10 between the District of Seashell and Doug Spainy. This is one of the template leases, we'll call them, that council is now quite familiar with, that have come up a number of times. And it's basically a lease that was first entered into in 2000 that expired in December 2019, that has a provision for a one-time only option to renew for a further 5-year term. So it is before you. The term is there's already been almost 2 years that have progressed with this. So the actual expiry of this lease would be December 31st, 2024, if council approves this this one-time only option to renew. Other than that, it's the typical modification agreements that you've seen in the past, and it's in front of you for consideration of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, questions, comments? If none, what would you like to do? Councillor Scott.
I'll move recommendation 2 that we move with extending the term of the lease for 5 years, January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2024, on the same terms and conditions as set out in the existing lease, be approved as presented. And further, that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the modification agreement.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.8. 10.8 is the Joint Child Care Council appointments. Ms. Paulson, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in February of 2020, the Child Care Action Plan was released, and that was prepared in conjunction with the District of Seashell, Town of Gibsons, and the Sunshine Coast Regional District with a grant funding. Since then, the district has taken several steps towards working on the recommendations that came out of that action plan. And the 5th recommendation is that a joint child care council be created on the Sunshine Coast to help enact the other recommendations of that plan. So the purpose of the report here today is to provide the opportunity to appoint individuals to represent the district on the Joint Child Care Council.
Thank you. So we're looking to council for who would like to be on the Joint Child Care Council. I think Councillor Rowe had put her name forward, and I'd put my name forward as well. I've been working with Capilano University quite a bit on child care provision on the Sunshine Coast, so I'd really like to be involved in this. So we need a recommendation. Councillor Scott.
Well, that's 2, so I recommend that Councillor Rowe and Mayor Seegers be appointed to represent the District of Seashell on the Sunshine Coast Joint Child Care Council.
Thank you, and that's been seconded by Councillor Toth. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, just a question. Who is this council hosted by? Who is there a primary organization here?
Through Your Worship, the terms of reference and the procedures and policies for the council will be determined by the council members when a council is formed. So that'll be up to the council to decide exactly how that will look.
Okay, I know Mayor Seegers and Councillor Rowe are experienced with this kind of thing, but I would encourage you to try and designate a host organization to provide that organizational capacity.
Thank you. We will get on that right away. All right. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10.9, Engineering and Operations Division Capital Project Updates. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to reports from councillors. So which end of the table should I start at? Me. You? Okay, we'll start at this end of the table. Councillor Toth, Lamb, Kuster, Scott, and then we'll go to Councillor Rowe and McLean. Councillor Toth.
I only have one thing to report, which was that I attended the Operations Center groundbreaking. I see in the engineering report there it listed as a sod turning, and there's no grass there, so I hesitate to call it a sod turning. But it was nice to see everybody there. It was nice to see our outdoors staff in attendance there, and yeah, you can tell that Jamie and John are excited to get in there. So no, beyond that, I don't have anything to report.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
I attended the Segundo meeting, left my notes at home, but anyways, I do remember the Chamber of Commerce, BC Chamber of Commerce did allocate some funds to the Segundo to support a Shop Local campaign. And there's been more money that's come forward for them. So now it's just $105,000 that they've been able to spend to, to support Shopland Local. And they believe they've done very well with what they've achieved. So sorry about my notes, but that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
I'll keep this quick. I attended APC last week, and just a very spirited discussion with respect to development permit for TELUS Living, but I'm excited to see this move forward. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
I also attended APC, and that is all I have for the last week. I leave tomorrow, heading back east for the last bit of my firefighting training, so I'll be out of town for the next month.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I'm trying so hard not to make a comment about how Councillor Toth hasn't been to 2545 for a late evening hairdo, but I know what I'm getting him for Christmas. I don't really have any. I too attended APC, and I don't have anything else to report council-wise, but I do just want to say that the Seashell Hospital Foundation is firing up the Med Talks in-person program again, and we'll be doing our first one on September 9th at the Pavilion at Rockwood, I believe, and the topic's going to be women's health. So I can't wait to get that going in person again. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. I attended the Local Government Leadership Academy, LGLA, and it's probably one of the better conferences I went to. There's a whole lot of learning there. That's the whole point of them, is just learning from each other. I have numerous pages of notes, but I'll boil it down to one point. And that's speaking about the value of creating a vision for a community. So it's creating a vision for what the community wants to be. And the key takeaway from that is that once you have that vision, everything is aligned that you're doing. So I think looking at the vision that we've established in the district of Seashell, we kind of have a strategic priorities vision, but this is more a vision for a community. And the one we go off of is the 2007 vision plan. So it might be time to rethink that and look at what we want our community to be. So to the people around this table, I'll be bringing that up a bunch over the next few months and try and get that moving, because I think it's a really important conversation to have. What kind of community is Seashell? And then the Ferry Advisory Committee will be having a meeting on the 29th to discuss summer service. Still promising 2-ship service, but we do have concerns around loading, particularly on the highway above the fare gate. So we're going to have lots of conversations about how communications and processes can be improved when you are above the fare gate in Horseshoe Bay on those busy weekends, and what we can do to improve that process.
Thank you. I too attended LGLA. I haven't been for quite a few years, and I really enjoyed it. Dr. Bonnie Henry was the keynote speaker. She spoke about being a leader operating under pressure. And one of the things that she indicated was that through the pandemic, she's actually had to have security because she's had death threats. So it was quite disturbing to hear that. There was a really good session on Indigenous realities in BC. They had some of the Indigenous leaders who are chairs or mayors or directors of regional districts speaking about their reality and the fact that they have to deal with 3 governments. They have to deal with their local government, and they have to deal provincially, and they have to deal federally. And typically they've got very small populations. So it does cause a lot of stress, and there's a really high demand on their time. So they ask that, when we work with them, that we just recognize that. Really good session on social media. 2 mayors were up on the stage with one of the social media personalities, and each of them monitors and deals with their social media totally differently, like exact opposite, and for them it works. But some good points on that. A really good session on responsible conduct by municipalities and regional district directors and councils, and the direction that the province is looking to go potentially with hiring somebody who would be, I don't know what you'd call them, I forget what they call them, but it'd be somebody who could be a resource to the different councils, et cetera, when they're dealing with conduct of the elected personalities. Economic recovery, really good session. There was one fellow up there who was from Canal Flats. He spoke really, really, really fast. So I'm hoping they indicated they're going to provide us with the audio tape. And I will send that out to you along with the slides. The slides didn't really go with what he's talking about. They were just slides. So I'm hoping we get that and I can listen to it over again. Another session on cybersecurity. As we know, cybersecurity is really important. I really like the fact that District of Seashell has us do those cybersecurity, quizzes, et cetera, because we know, there was a government on the Sunshine Coast actually who was held up for ransomware. So it's out there. It's really important that we all learn about that. CAPU advisory group meeting. We have these about quarterly. It's mayors and chairs, et cetera, on the Sunshine Coast. And it was set up by CAPU to hear from us as to what we see our needs being and how they can support us. So some of the things they talked about, for example, are they recognize that there's a high need for healthcare aids. So they've been offering healthcare aid programs. The early childhood education training was talked about at the beginning by Julia Black. They actually went out and interviewed all of the people working in daycares on the Sunshine Coast to see what courses they had, what courses they needed in order to be certified as a childcare worker. Because when there was a huge need for childcare workers on the Sunshine Coast, the requirements were relaxed so that somebody could do one of 3 courses and actually be employed in the industry, but they're not actually certified. Now the government has come out and indicated that if they're certified, they can qualify for an extra $4 an hour increase to their wages. So CAPU has gone out to interview all these people to find out what courses they need to get certified and are looking to accommodate that in evening and weekend hours so that they can actually get those certification. But they're recognizing the need we have. So those are the types of things we're seeing. They come to us and say, this is what we're doing. What do you need on the Sunshine Coast? And then they go away and see how they can make it happen. So I'm really seeing that synergy working. Southwest Central Regional call with Minister Nathan Cullen. So Minister Josie Osborne started these during the pandemic, and Minister Cullen is continuing them. This one he brought EMBC, and they were talking with regards to the spring freshet. So they said snowpack is normal in most areas, and because it's been cooler this spring, it's not melting as quick. But they then fielded calls from various areas about what the concerns were. Today I had a meeting with the community action team, and a couple of stats that came out of there. On the Sunshine Coast, overdoses are increasing each month for the last 3 months. And the number of overdose deaths that we have here are the same average as we see throughout the province of BC. So even though we've got a small population, our numbers are comparable. I also had a meeting today with the Rotary around the gazebo on the pier. That is moving forward with them. And there'll be more coming back to us in the next while. And this Friday, we have a Sunshine Coast Leaders meeting with our MP. So those are continuing. They'll be monthly at this point. So they've been relaxed a bit from every other week as we were doing before. All I have, Councillor Toth, FCRD report.
When you have your leaders meeting, can you talk to our MP about Porpoise Bay and where they're at with that?
It's on the list.
Thank you.
SCRD reports attached. It was a light meeting period, so I managed to get it all on one page, but we're happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Toth? All right, I'll give you one more point on that. We've actually arranged for a tour this Friday, so we're having the meeting and then we're doing a tour of the harbor, and we're actually taking one of our staff along as well, so that we can go out and see what's happening out there. So yes, it's very much on the radar. All right, moving on to item 12.1. This is release of resolutions from closed council meeting. Look for a motion to, I don't know what we do with this, accept, adopt, release? Pass the recommendation. Thank you. Someone like to move that? Councillor Toth, Councillor Kuster, all those in favor? Thank you. And then we move on to correspondence. So there are 3 items of correspondence. Some are they're all marked for action if we'd like to do that. What would council like to do? Anything? Councillor Todd?
Yeah, just a question for the first one, the STBA letter. You know, it all boils down to that last paragraph on page 116 to sort of accept the original appraisal for that chunk of laneway. But just as a process question, you know, even if we wanted to, I don't think we could, because that would be considered probably giving assistance to business. I don't know if staff are able to confirm that or speak to that at all, but
I can just tell you, in the industry that I work in, appraisals are typically good for 30 days. After that, they're no longer accepted. And would staff care to comment?
Your Worship, I could just comment from Mr. Allen there's Mr. Allen, but just in terms of that question around assistance to business, it is something that council has to take take to heart and take very seriously, and it could look like we are assisting a business if we were going to look at an amount that's less than market value. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, did you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you. And I'll just speak to the process here. This is it's a lengthy and complicated process, and we need to find a fair real estate transaction. There was an appraisal done, but it did take several more months before formal documents, survey plans, and applications made their way to us. So that there's some time lag there for sure that's causing some complications here. But it wasn't until earlier this year that we received a formal application for this, which was several months after appraisal was made.
Thank you. So, council, I don't see any action on any of these items. All right. We need to move receipt of correspondence. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. All right, so before we get to item 13, and you get to do your cameo appearance, tonight is Jennifer Chamberlain's last meeting with us. She's moving off to the interior, and we'll miss her. Sorry, I'm going to get choked up. I've worked with Jennifer a lot over the last few years, and she's been supportive, always there to do what we need to do, and I really appreciate her, and they're really lucky to have her come. So thank you for all you've done for us, and good luck in your new job and your new role in your new community. Thank you. And I think there's some stuff, a present for her back there. All right. Mayor, council, and staff emergency items.
No emergency items, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you.